Hi guys, welcome back. Hope trial exam period went really well and you were able to get a full set of practice in. Today we're going to talk about how you now transition to the next part of your exam prep, which is obviously preparing for the real deal. There are as many ways to prepare for exams as there are people who will be taking these exams for VCE. But I thought that I might put together some information on kind of my take on what I think is one of the most effective ways to prepare for exam success. It's tailored towards VCE sociology, but would certainly work across any other, particularly humanities VCE subjects where you have content knowledge that you need to apply to some subject-specific questions. So let's jump into it. The reason that I like this method is because exam skills are not just knowing the stuff that you've been taught. They're a combination of, the way I say it, three things. First thing is obviously all of that content knowledge. It's knowing that one of the misconceptions about Australian Indigenous culture is that Australian Indigenous people live in arid areas. But as well as that specific content knowledge, it's also some subject-specific VCE exam skills. And by that I mean, how do you answer a 4, a 6, a 10-mark question on a VCE sociology exam the way that VCE sociology assessors want you to answer it? And number 2 can be pretty frustrating sometimes. Number 3 is the final piece of the puzzle is speed and stamina. Can you do all of that stuff really quickly and with enough time so that you are able to finish an entire VCE sociology or VCE any subject exam? In my view, they need to be practiced in that order, learnt in that order. You need to have the content knowledge first as your foundation. Then you apply that to your exam-specific questions. And then, as kind of the icing on the cake, you make sure that you can do all of that really quickly while still maintaining your stamina for the whole marathon. So, the first step is where you should be right now. I'm recording this on the 14th of October, so right smack bang in the middle of October. Your SOS exam is on the 8th of November. So you've got a good almost 4 weeks to play with. This step should take you probably up to about 2 weeks, maybe a little less, but you really want to focus on this step now, immediately. So what this step involves is, as it says, revising just the content. We're not worrying too much about applying it to practice questions or doing trials or anything like that yet. We just want to go back over what we've learned. And that means we're going to take it area by study at a time. And you want to create some kind of master notes for each area of study. It's up to you what that looks like. You know what works best for you. At school and uni, I love just a big Word document full of everything. I found I could format things the way that I wanted. If you're perhaps more artistic or better at layout and things like that, you might want something handwritten. Handwritten is fantastic. It's even better for memory than typing. So if you are that way inclined, I would encourage you to go down the handwritten route. You might want to color code it. Maybe it's a big folder, either online or in person. Whichever way you like, create a master notes document of some kind. Externalize everything in your brain and put it in one place. Where are you going to get that information? For sociology, it will all be on the Google site, particularly in mine and Rachel's slides. So that's where you need to start from. I would encourage you to go back, literally topic by topic, work your way through the slides, add it to your master notes as you go. Once you've got a set of master notes for an area of study, you can then actually start revising it. And there are lots of different strategies that you can use to do this. Whatever strategy you use, I encourage you to make use of spaced repetition, which is a strategy that we know works for retaining things in our memory when it comes to exam time. All spaced repetition is applying your memorization efforts in small chunks regularly over several hours, days, or weeks. So revise your sociology content for area of study 1, for example. Spend 20 minutes on it every day for a week, right? So you've got those spaces in between. You're not doing these big chunks of 2, 3, 4 hour study sessions where you're cramming. You're spacing it out. You may be having a day or two off and coming back to that same area of study. Plenty of other strategies that will work well in this step, making glossaries of key definitions, particularly if they're in the study design, using flashcards, making mind maps, making use of visuals and color coding, getting a copy of the study design and seeing, going through each of the study design dot points, and organizing your notes by study design key knowledge points is another really great way to do it. If you you might not be able to see that line down the bottom, but the bulk of this should be done now, in this week and next week, really. You should be doing the bulk of this stuff. As I'll explain in step 2, you can go back and add to it, so don't feel it needs to be the most comprehensive thing that you've started, but it does need to cover as much as you can. The other important thing to note is if you stop here, you are not doing enough to maximize your potential mark on the exam. Please don't stop just with this content revision piece. Yeah, we're preparing you for an exam. We're not preparing you to sit down and have a one-on-one conversation about what you remember about experiences of community when ICT is involved. Sitting you down, you're preparing to sit yourself down and write those answers, which is where we get to in step 2 and 3. Okay. Remember as well that for sociology, there's content and there's evidence. And your master notes document or whatever you're creating, even your flashcards, should include sourced evidence as well. And as you're revising some of those key quotes in there. You're revising the fact that the Victorian Protection Act, 1869, makes reference to the care, custody, and education of children, and you're memorizing that quote just like you would in English. Okay, then we move on to step 2, which is where we apply all of this knowledge, and this is where you're going to be doing your practice exam style questions. You want to put in as many weeks as possible of this, but this is probably getting into, you've done your week or 2 of content revision, and now you're doing another 2 or 3 weeks of exam style questions. You can access these questions, and I will put together a document for you with all these links in one handy spot. But you can look at past exams. All of the VCAR exams are available on their website. Trial exams, past SACs and prac SACs, they'll all be available. I will link everything that we have done, and any in-class questions that we've done as well. The bulk of it should be from exam style questions, and particularly VCAR past exams, so you can get a sense of the style of questions that they ask. In this step, I don't want you to worry too much about timing. If you're sitting down in front of a 4-mark question and it's taking you 10 or 15 minutes, obviously that's not going to fly when it comes to November the 8th, but for now, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Please don't stress about timing at this point. Your goal here is to get as close to a full mark answer as possible, right? So do whatever you can to squeeze out as many marks from those 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 as you can. And if you're not sure if you're getting those maximum marks, go and check the marking guides. We have made those for practice SACs and SACs, or the examiner's report if you're looking at a VCAR piece, or ask me, email me your response, email Rach, go and check in with Rach in person. But check. Don't, especially in the early stages, don't rely on what feels like a 4 or what feels like a 6. Once you've answered the question as best as you can, you've gotten feedback, figure out what you're missing from that response. Do you tend to get, 3 out of 6s because you're missing that quality sourced evidence? Once you've figured out what you've missed, I want you to actually go back to step 1 and go in and add it to your notes. Did you realize that you couldn't answer a question about the effects of protection on suppression of culture because you didn't have quotes from the Victorian Protection Act? And that's because you didn't have them in your content notes to start with. Go back and add them into your master notes. So your master content revision notes should be growing throughout this process. Hopefully throughout this, you'll be building up a bank of well-answered questions. That's the goal. I would encourage you to work with a peer or work with a small group of people so you can share those well-answered questions among yourself. Say, hey, I've just sat down and worked with Rach on this, and we're pretty sure it's as close to a 6 mark as we're going to get. Have a look. What do you think? What can you add? How would you approach it? Remember as well in this section that the exam is 50-50 short answer and extended response. So your work, your preparation should also be 50-50 extended response and short answer. Please don't avoid extended response just because they might take a bit longer to answer. If you're typing out your responses at this point, it's not a huge deal. We're going to shift to handwriting in the next step if you haven't already. Okay. The final step, and this is really the final step. We're talking about the week and really actually the days in the lead up to your exam, that first week of November. So here is where we remember that ultimately you guys are working towards sitting down in a room for 2 hours and 15 minutes and handwriting responses. So at some point, your prep obviously needs to shift. The difficulty with step 3 is that it does mean at some point calling it and say, right, okay, it's the 4th or the 5th of November. I actually just need to stop. I've done what I can. It's never going to be perfect. I'm never going to, revise perfectly every single day. But I am going to kind of call it here and now shift to my practice actually being on speed and stamina. So this is where we shift to timed, handwritten practice answers. Before you start, you should have a sense of, right, if the exam is 15 minutes reading time, 2 hours writing time, how do I divide up that 2 hours writing time? And that's probably something like 15-minute extended responses and, a total of 1 hour across the 7 questions or the 8 questions that you'll be getting in section A. Okay, you should have those guidelines off the top of your head as well. This period should include at least one complete practice exam, as in find 2 hours or 2 hours and 15 if you can, and sit down and do a complete practice exam. Do that on top. That's in addition to the trial exam that you did at school earlier in the week. Although it should include at least one kind of full marathon session, the majority of this doesn't need to be in big chunks. Maybe every morning you just do your 30 minutes of sociology, and maybe that's an extended response and 2 short answers. Or, you're just doing extended responses during the week and then you do your short answers on the weekend, whatever works. But you should be doing this every single day in the lead up to the exam. So whatever that looks like for you, make it work. And that's it. Those are my 3 steps. Hopefully then by that point, when you're walking in to the exam, you've done the foundations of your content knowledge. You've got in the back of your mind somewhere what those really good, strong 4, 5, 6 out of 6 responses look like, and your match fit. You can hold a pen and smash out some writing for 2 hours. You know how to pace yourself so that you're not going to run out of time and leave a short answer question. You're not going to get any guaranteed zeros because you have missed a question. All right, good luck. As I mentioned, which step are we in right now? We are absolutely back at step 1. You should be working on revising your content at this point. So get that master notes list together, start putting together whatever works for you, mind maps, flashcards, get your color coding organized, get that master document happening, and we will see you when you're ready to get into some question practice. All right, best of luck. Miss you guys. I'll talk to you soon.